Hello again, dear friend. Come sit with me a while. Let's imagine ourselves on a quiet porch in early summer, a soft breeze rustling the garden leaves, the morning light gently spilling across old wood and terracotta. Maybe there's a cup of tea beside you, still warm. Maybe there's a little bird watching us from the fence post, curious but not afraid. You don't need a fancy backyard or a big budget to feel the richness of a life well lived. You just need a little sunlight, a bit of quiet, and a willingness to see beauty where others might not. Some folks might pass by an old teacup, a broken chair, or a chipped mirror and call it trash. But you and I, we know better, don't we? We know that a garden is more than a place for plants. It's a place for memory, for imagination, for healing. A place where forgotten things come alive again, just like us. Today, I want to walk you through 25 garden ideas that don't cost much at all. Many come from thrift shops like Savers or Value Village, or even your own garage. Each idea is simple, accessible, and soothing to the soul. No heavy lifting, no perfection needed. We'll use old mirrors to make the space feel bigger. We'll turn empty teacups into floating planters. We'll make bird baths and chandeliers, benches and borders, all from things others might overlook. Because that's the heart of gardening, really. Not just tending to plants, but tending to life. To take what's been tossed aside and give it dignity again. So breathe in this quiet morning, and let's begin. There's magic waiting in your own two hands, no matter how old, how weathered, or how gentle they've become. Let's make something beautiful together. Do you remember those old lamp bases people used to keep in their living rooms? Heavy brass, a bit too grand for today's decor. Maybe you've seen a few tucked away at Value Village, or sitting lonely on a thrift store shelf. They might be missing their shades or scratched with age. But just like us, they're not past their prime, they're just waiting for a new purpose. To begin this simple project, pick out a few sturdy lamp bases. They can be mismatched. In fact, that only adds to the charm. Look for ones with wide, steady bottoms so they won't topple in the wind. Spray them with a coat of weather-resistant paint, matte black, rustic bronze, or even soft ivory. Let your style shine. Now for the glow, replace the missing bulbs with solar light caps. These are easy to find online or at garden centers. Many are designed to fit snugly into existing sockets or can be glued in place with a strong adhesive. If your lamp has a harp, the part that once held a lampshade, you can wrap it in wire and hang small glass beads, old keys, or charms for a bit of sparkle when the sun goes down. Place your finished pieces along a garden path, beside a porch step, or near your favorite outdoor chair. When dusk falls, the solar lights gently flicker on, casting soft, welcoming light over the flowers, the fence, the walkways you've known so well. And suddenly, those thrifted lamps once headed for the landfill have found a new stage. They illuminate your garden like old storytellers, standing tall, warm, and quietly elegant. You didn't need to buy designer lighting. You didn't need to spend a fortune. You simply saw what could be and made it real. Isn't that a lovely thought? Even in this season of life, you can still bring light wherever you go. Do you have an old picture frame hiding somewhere in a closet? The kind that once held a family photo or a cross-stitched saying hung near the kitchen. Maybe its backing has come loose, or the glass is missing. Before you think of tossing it, let's turn it into something living, something green and growing. This idea is perfect for small spaces, like a patio wall, a fence panel, or even a sunny corner on your balcony. It brings vertical beauty where bending or planting isn't so easy anymore. Start by choosing a wooden frame. Thrift shops like Value Village often have dozens of them in all sizes and styles. Go with something sturdy, preferably with a bit of depth to it. Next, pick up some chicken wire, a few wine corks, and either sphagnum moss or sponge pieces to help retain moisture. Cut the chicken wire to fit the back opening of the frame, then staple or nail it firmly in place. Behind the wire, stuff your moss or sponge base tightly. This will hold your soil and plants in place. You can also hot glue trimmed wine corks around the interior edge to help provide structure and drainage. Now comes the fun part, the succulents. These little plants are perfect for seniors. They're low maintenance, need little watering, and come in so many shapes and shades. Choose tiny cuttings or mini potted ones and gently press them through the wire into the moss. You can use a pencil or popsicle stick to help tuck them in. Think of it like decorating a quilt, but with life and color instead of thread. Once filled, let the frame rest flat for a week or two, giving the roots time to settle. Then you can hang it vertically on a fence wall or garden trellis. Mist it with water once or twice a week and watch it grow slowly into a living portrait. Over time, the succulents will begin to cascade softly over the frame's edge, creating a piece of art that changes with the seasons. Some might flower. Others may shift color depending on the light. And all of it, every leaf and stem, is a quiet celebration of transformation. Isn't it beautiful how a frame once meant to hold still images of the past now holds something breathing and evolving? It reminds us that just because something or someone has served its first purpose doesn't mean its story is over. Life continues. Roots deepen. Beauty reshapes itself. And your wall, it becomes a gentle reminder that creativity like plants can bloom at any age. There's something magical about wind chimes, isn't there? That gentle tinkle in the breeze like laughter drifting across a summer afternoon. But this one dear friend isn't made of glass or store-bought metals. This one begins in your own kitchen drawer or maybe at the thrift shop down the road. Have you ever held a spoon that reminded you of your mother's Sunday dinners? Or a fork that saw more birthdays than it ever counted? Old cutlery carries stories, and it can carry music too. To begin, gather a few fork spoons or even butter knives from Value Village or your own stash of retired utensils. Don't worry if they're mismatched or tarnished, that's part of the charm. Look for pieces with different lengths and weights. The variety is what creates the lovely layered sound when the wind brushes through them. Next, find a base to hang them from. An old metal coat hanger bent into a ring, a driftwood branch, or even a salvaged cheese grater turned upside down will do just fine. The key is to choose something sturdy with room for spacing. This way your pieces won't clang too harshly against one another. Using a drill and a metal bit, or if you're lucky, some forks already have holes at the base drill, small holes at the ends of the handles. Thread each utensil with fishing line twine or even strands of repurposed jewelry chain. Vary the length slightly so the utensils hang in a cascading pattern. You can get creative here, add tiny beads between the knots for sparkle hang vintage keys or tiny bells alongside the cutlery, or wrap the twine with soft ribbon to catch the breeze. Secure each string firmly to your base. Then hang your chime somewhere peaceful, a porch beam, a shepherd's hook, or beside your garden bench. When the wind blows through it, you'll hear a sound that's not just sweet, it's personal. It's the sound of your resourcefulness, your creativity, your memory playing like a lullaby made of old silver and second chances. This chime doesn't just decorate a space, it tells a story. The fork that once stirred a holiday dish. The spoon that once comforted a grandchild with warm soup. They find their new voice now in the garden breeze. And you've created music from things the world forgot. Just like that, a bit of junk becomes joy. And every time you hear it, you'll be reminded that even in stillness, life makes a sound. Soft, timeless, yours. There's something delightful about opening an old drawer, isn't there? That soft creak of wood. The smell of time. The memories tucked away inside. Now imagine those drawers no longer attached to a dresser filled not with papers or socks, but with overflowing blooms and greenery. That's the charm of a stacked drawer planter, a tower of color and life made entirely from things others left behind. Start by heading to a thrift store or curbside yard sale. Look for old wooden drawers, deep or shallow, painted or plain. You don't need the whole dresser, just the drawers themselves. Mismatched ones work beautifully and add character. Choose 2 to 5 drawers depending on the space you're working with. A small patio can hold 2. A backyard corner might welcome more. Now give each drawer a fresh breath. Clean them well and decide if you want to paint or leave them weathered for that farmhouse charm. A soft pastel, a bold pop of color, or a simple whitewash, any style will do. If you plan to stack them, drill a few small drainage holes into the bottom of each drawer so your plants won't get soggy. Next comes the layering. Begin by placing the largest drawer on the bottom. Fill it with a mix of soil and compost, then add flowers, herbs, or succulents. For the second drawer, position it at a slight angle, resting one edge into the soil of the lower drawer. Secure it with screws or wooden supports if needed. Repeat the process for each layer. You'll create a leaning, blooming staircase of drawers like an open jewelry box brimming with green treasures. For extra support, tuck bricks or blocks underneath the back corners of higher drawers. If lifting is a concern, enlist a neighbor or family member to help assemble it in place. Inside each drawer, you can create a different world. One with fragrant herbs like mint and rosemary. One with trailing petunias. One with low-maintenance succulents or cheerful marigolds. Top it off with a little sign, Nana's Garden, or bloom where you're planted, and step back. What once held clutter now holds life. What once stood forgotten in a dusty corner now stands tall in the sun, blooming with joy. Isn't that just like us? Sometimes all we need is a little shift in purpose. And we become something more vibrant, more useful, more ourselves than ever before. You didn't just plant flowers in an old drawer. You planted pride. You planted beauty. You planted the proof that transformation is always possible even in our later chapters. Let's talk about baskets. Not the kind that hold laundry or clutter, but the kind that once carried apples from the market or held hand-picked flowers for the kitchen table. Woven, worn, and often overlooked thrifted baskets are humble, but oh, how beautifully they transform when placed on a garden wall. This DIY idea is perfect for those of us with fences, railings, or vertical surfaces that could use a little cheer. And best of all, it requires no digging, no heavy lifting, just gentle hands and a little imagination. Start by gathering a handful of baskets from your favorite thrift store. Value Village always has plenty. Look for shallow, lightweight ones with strong bases. A mix of round, square, and oval shapes adds personality. Don't worry about color. You can spray paint them in a uniform soft tone, white sage charcoal, or let their natural weaves shine. To turn these baskets into planters, line each one with landscape fabric or burlap to hold soil. Don't have any on hand. Even an old pillowcase or a piece of mesh laundry bag can do the trick. If your plants need more moisture, add a layer of recycled soda bottle liners at the bottom. Just snip off the tops and poke drainage holes in the base. Then fill the lined baskets with a potting mix and your plants of choice. Consider trailing flowers like petunias or nasturtiums, or herbs such as thyme and oregano that will drape softly over the edges. Now comes the joyful part, mounting them. Attach each basket to your fence shed wall or porch railing using nails, hooks, or even sturdy twine. Stagger them in a cascading design with some higher and some lower, like a waterfall of blooms. If you're worried about stability, use zip ties behind the scenes to hold everything snugly in place. Stand back. Look at what you've done. A plain fence now becomes a vibrant living wall, one that sways gently with the breeze and invites butterflies and birds to stop by. Each basket, once meant to carry, now gives back in a new way, holding life, holding beauty, holding joy. And isn't that how we all feel sometimes? Like we've carried so much. And now, in this gentler season of life, we get to simply be to hold beauty instead of burdens. You didn't just hang up a few baskets. You turned an ordinary wall into a vertical poem of color and grace. You reminded the world and yourself that even soft, simple things can bloom brilliantly. There's a quiet kind of joy in knowing the names of the things you grow. Not just green plant or herb, but basil, thyme, lavender, names that feel like friends returning each spring. And what better way to honor them than with garden markers made from something just as familiar, old spoons. Yes, spoons, not polished and perfect, but weathered, forgotten, sometimes bent, much like many of us. And yet, they can be beautiful again, functional again, full of story. To start, dig through your kitchen drawer or head to a local thrift store like Value Village. Look for vintage silverware, those lovely old sets with flowered handles or patinas from years of use. You'll need the larger, heavier spoons for this project, ones with a nice flat surface for stamping. Now this part might sound a little crafty, but it's truly doable. You'll need a small set of metal stamping letters. They come in kits and are simple to use. Place your spoon on a sturdy surface like a block of wood or concrete step. Hold the letter stamp in place and gently tap it with a small hammer. Don't worry if the letters aren't perfectly aligned. The charm is in the imperfections. Spell out the name of your plant, basil, mint, zinnia. You can add a heart, a leaf, or even a small date if you wish. Once you've finished, use a black permanent marker or wax rub to highlight the letters. Then wipe the surface clean so the ink remains only in the stamped grooves. And just like that, a piece of forgotten cutlery has become a signpost in your growing world. But if stamping feels a bit too much, don't worry. There's a lovely alternative. Take old corks from wine bottles or saved up popsicle sticks and write the plant names with waterproof markers. Glue the corks onto wooden dowels or twigs and place them gently in the soil. They're rustic, biodegradable, and every bit as charming. Place your new markers in raised beds, flower pots, or balcony planters. The next time you brush past them with your watering can or lean in to pluck a sprig of rosemary, you'll smile because that spoon once stirred tea on a rainy afternoon. And now it points the way to something living. These markers aren't just for remembering what you planted. They're for remembering that even the most ordinary things, a spoon, a cork, a twig, still have something to say. And so do you. Imagine sitting beneath a soft cascade of flowers, swaying gently in the breeze. Above you, petals seem to bloom in midair, catching the late sunlight as it filters through the trees. It feels like something out of a dream, doesn't it? And yet with a little creativity and a visit to the thrift store, you can bring this magic to life right on your porch or patio. This floral chandelier isn't wired or heavy or complicated. It's light, delicate, and made from pieces that once had very different lives. Wire baskets, faux florals, old light fixtures, maybe even bits of ribbon saved from past gifts. All it takes is a little time and the joyful willingness to try something new. Start by finding a wire hanging basket, the kind that usually holds potted ferns or trailing ivy. You can often spot them at thrift stores like Savers or Value Village. If you're lucky, you might even come across a discarded chandelier frame, missing its bulbs, perhaps, but still full of potential. Next, gather your flowers. Faux florals are best for this, and they're easy to find. Secondhand silk hydrangeas, roses, sprigs of eucalyptus, or dried lavender if you prefer a more natural touch. Soft pastels work beautifully, but don't be afraid to mix in deeper tones for contrast. Begin by wrapping garden twine or raffia around the frame or wire basket. This softens the structure and gives the piece a more organic look. Then, using floral wire or hot glue, start tucking your blooms into place. Let them flow outward and downward like a flowering waterfall caught in midair. To finish, weave in a strand or two of battery-operated fairy lights or LED tea lights. Tuck the tiny bulbs among the flowers so that when the sun goes down, your chandelier twinkles gently in the twilight. Now comes the best part, hanging it. Use twine, ribbon, or chain to suspend your piece from a porch beam, pergola, or even a low-hanging tree branch. Make sure it's at eye level or slightly above so you can admire the blossoms as you sit beneath with a cup of tea or a good book. And there it is, a chandelier made not of crystals but of quiet joy, of petals, light, and memory. Each flower, once forgotten in a bin at the back of a thrift shop, now hangs like a celebration of life's softness and creativity. And you, dear friend, have turned those cast-offs into something graceful. Something that says, I still bloom, I still shine. Because you do. You know that big salad bowl sitting in the back of your cupboard? The one that only came out for family gatherings, potato salad, or fruit punch on special days. Maybe you haven't used it in a while. Maybe you found one just like it at the thrift store, ceramic or glass, maybe even plastic, with a cheerful retro pattern. Well, let's give that bowl a new life, one filled with stillness, sparkle, and serenity. Today, we're turning it into a tabletop water garden. This little project is especially lovely for small patios, balcony tables, or anywhere you'd like a peaceful focal point without the upkeep of a full fountain. No digging, no plumbing, no stress. Just a few ingredients, many of which can be thrifted or repurposed. Start by selecting your bowl. Wide and shallow is ideal, but deeper bowls work just as well. If you're concerned about leaks, a glass salad bowl or enamel basin works beautifully. Now gather a few small items to decorate the interior: smooth pebbles, marbles, glass beads, even colorful old buttons. These help weigh things down and catch the light. If you want a trickling sound, add a small submersible pump. You can find affordable solar-powered ones online, or sometimes even at resale shops. Set it in the center and cover the base with stones. If you prefer silence, skip the pump and let the water sit still like a mirror, calm and reflective. Now add a few water-friendly accents. A floating candle or two, a clipped bloom from your garden, a ceramic frog or thrifted figurine perched on the edge. And if you're feeling extra creative, you can float old costume jewelry pieces across the surface, little treasures turned into shimmering lilies. For plants, consider water-loving greenery like duckweed, tiny lotus pads, or papyrus. Even a sprig of mint in a jar lid can grow happily in this quiet pond. Just make sure your bowl gets partial sunlight and a little fresh water now and then to keep things fresh. Place it on your patio table, garden bench, or windowsill where the light can find it. When the breeze stirs or the sun sparkles just right, you'll have created something peaceful. A miniature water world born from a kitchen bowl and your gentle hands. And maybe as you sit beside it with a cool drink or watch the birds flutter nearby, you'll remember that the calm you long for can begin in the simplest places. That beauty doesn't need to be loud or expensive. That you even now still have the power to create something that soothes. Because this bowl once meant to serve salad now serves serenity. And that's a kind of nourishment too. There's something deeply comforting about a garden bench, a place to rest, sip your tea, or simply sit and listen to the world go by. But you don't need to buy a fancy one to enjoy that peace. With a little creativity and some cast-off wood, you can make your own cozy seat one that's not just beautiful but meaningful. This project begins with something humble, a discarded pallet. You've probably seen them behind grocery stores or even stacked near the dumpsters of hardware shops. And if not, your local Value Village or neighborhood Facebook group may just have one waiting for you free or for a few dollars. Look for a pallet in decent shape, no rotten boards, no dangerous splinters. Give it a good scrub with soap and water, then let it dry in the sun. If needed, sand down any rough edges, but don't worry about perfection. A little wear gives it charm. Next, decide on your layout. For a simple garden bench, all you need is one full pallet for the seat and a second for the backrest. Use wood screws to secure them at a 90-degree angle. If you want arms or legs, you can add sturdy brick cinder blocks or even chair legs salvaged from an old dining chair at the thrift store. Once assembled, give the bench a coat of paint or wood stain. Soft white gives it a cottage feel. A pale sea foam or dusty rose makes it cheerful. Or you can go boho with a deep teal or warm terracotta. Let your heart choose. Now for the comfort, take a trip to the thrift store and look for old chair cushions or outdoor pillows. You'll be amazed what a little fabric and fluff can do. Even a folded quilt or rolled-up towel can add support for the lower back. Drape a lightweight throw over the side and suddenly your bench looks like it belongs in a magazine. Set your bench under a tree beside a planter or against a sunny wall. Maybe hang a wind chime nearby. Maybe place a little side table next to it with a candle or a stack of books. This is your spot now. A gentle pause in the rhythm of your day. And the best part, you made it yourself from things others walked past, from items tossed aside. But you saw possibility. You turned a forgotten pallet into a place of comfort. A place to rest, reflect, and remember that slowing down is not a weakness, it's a gift. And in that quiet space, dear friend, you've given yourself the most important thing of all, a reason to sit and just be. There's something enchanting about soft firelight dancing along a garden path. It reminds us of long summer evenings, gentle laughter, and the quiet glow of home. You don't need to spend a fortune to create that feeling. In fact, all it takes is a few empty wine bottles and a bit of clever repurposing. Wine bottles are elegant by design, tall, curved, and colored like sea glass. And when paired with a bit of copper and a spark of flame, they transform into beautiful functional torches that light up your outdoor space with warmth and purpose. Begin by collecting a few wine bottles. Green, blue, clear, any color will do. You can find them at thrift shops like Value Village, or simply ask a neighbor to set a couple aside after their next dinner party. Wash them well and remove any labels if you prefer a clean look. Next, head to your local hardware store and gather the following: 1 to 2 inch copper coupling in a small section of copper pipe, Teflon tape. A wick, you can buy replacement torch wicks or use thick cotton rope. Citronella torch fuel, ideal for keeping mosquitoes at bay. Wrap the Teflon tape around the copper coupling until it fits snugly inside the bottle's opening. This holds the wick in place and seals the neck. Thread the wick through the coupling, leaving about an inch above the top and plenty below so it reaches the fuel. Fill the bottle with citronella or lamp oil, insert the wick, and let it soak for at least half an hour before lighting. That's all it takes to create a glowing torch. Now, where to place them? If you have a wooden deck railing, you can secure the bottles with metal brackets. If not, you can craft simple stands using scrap wood or recycled metal rods. Even lining them along a gravel path or around the edge of a raised flower bed gives your garden a magical twilight feel. And as the sky darkens and the flames flicker, your backyard begins to glow, not with expensive lighting, but with the soft fire of your own imagination. These torches do more than light the way. They offer protection. They invite guests to linger. They remind you that even an empty bottle still has value, still has a role to play. Just like us, they shine brightest when given a second chance. So pour a glass of iced tea, sit back on your pallet bench, and watch the evening unfold. You've made light, dear friend, with your own hands, from the simplest things. And in doing so, you've made something even more beautiful, peace. Have you ever looked at your garden and wished it felt just a little bigger, a little brighter? What if I told you the answer wasn't a renovation but a reflection? With just a few small mirrors, the kind you might find for a few dollars at Value Village, you can create the illusion of depth, light, and luxury right on your garden wall or fence. This DIY isn't just about decorating a space. It's about changing the way you see it. Start by collecting a handful of old mirrors. They don't have to match. In fact, it's better if they don't. A mix of frames, round, oval, square, gives your final piece a whimsical, collected feel. Look for mirrors that are slightly weathered or antique. A little chipping around the edge just adds character. Once you have your collection, lay them out on the ground first. Experiment with placement, maybe a cluster of small ones in the shape of a flower, or a column of mirrors climbing like ivy. The goal isn't symmetry, it's magic. Arrange them the way you'd arrange a bouquet, with variety, balance, and personality. If your mirrors have wooden frames, you can whitewash or lightly sand them for a rustic look. For metal frames, consider spray painting them in soft pastels or matte black for contrast. Or leave them just as they are, worn, charming, and full of quiet story. Now attach your mirrors to a backing. If you have an old wooden pallet, it works perfectly. Otherwise, reclaimed fence boards or a single slab of plywood will do. Secure the mirrors with outdoor adhesive and a few screws if needed. Then mount the finished mosaic to your fence, garden shed, or exterior wall. As the sun moves through the day, your mosaic will catch and scatter the light, making your garden sparkle in the morning and glow in the afternoon. It won't just reflect your plants. It will reflect the care, imagination, and soul you've poured into your little green world. You can even tuck a few extras around the edges: a wine cork, a dried flower, a seashell from your last trip to the shore. Suddenly, your mirror wall isn't just decor, it's memory layered and shining. And here's the quiet truth about this project. Mirrors don't only reflect what's in front of them. They reflect you, your creativity, your resourcefulness, your ability to find elegance in the everyday. So every time you pass your shimmering mosaic and catch a glimpse of yourself in that soft garden light, smile. That's not just a wall you decorated. That's a window into the beauty you've always carried. There's something poetic about an old ladder. Each rung has held the weight of someone reaching to paint, to pick apples, to hang lights. But once it's no longer sturdy enough to climb, it's often cast aside, leaning somewhere in the shadows, waiting to be useful again. Well, today is that day. Let's give that ladder a new life, not for climbing, but for growing. Head to your local thrift store or flea market and look for a wooden ladder with character. A bit of peeling paint, perfect. Rusty hardware, even better. If you prefer a sleeker look, a metal step ladder works beautifully too, especially for modern patios or balconies. Clean it up with a damp cloth, then decide, do you want to keep its weathered look or give it a fresh coat of paint? Soft whites and pale greens work well for cottage gardens. Matte black or navy brings a bold, modern edge. Whatever you choose, let the ladder reflect your style, quiet or colorful. Now for the magic, turning rungs into display shelves. Place the ladder open, leaning securely against a fence or wall. Then gather items to perch on each step. You can use thrifted mason jars filled with water and cuttings, small potted herbs, or painted tin cans planted with trailing vines. For a vertical garden, secure wooden boards across the rungs to create wider shelves, or hang small baskets from hooks. Want something even more creative? Drill old metal paint cans into the steps. Yes, even the ones with a few drips of color down the sides. Add gravel for drainage soil and then your favorite blooms. Marigolds, pansies, or little cherry tomatoes grow happily this way. To keep things lightweight, alternate your planting with decorative elements, a framed quote, a thrifted figurine, or even a wind chime hanging from the top rung. Each item becomes part of your ladder's new story. Set your ladder of life in a garden corner, on a porch, or against a sunny shed. As the days pass, flowers will spill over the edges, herbs will lean toward the light, and you'll have built something that's as functional as it is beautiful without bending, digging, or lifting more than you can handle. And every time you walk by, you'll be reminded, even when we stop climbing, we can still lift things up. Even when we've aged, we still have purpose, still hold beauty, still help life grow. This isn't just a ladder anymore. It's a sculpture of second chances rooted in your hands, blooming with intention. Every gardener knows the joy of stepping outside and snipping a few fresh herbs, a sprig of rosemary for potatoes, some mint for iced tea, a leaf of basil for a summer salad. But what if you don't have space for a big herb garden? What if all you have is a small porch, a windowsill, or a little patch of sunlight? That's where an old toolbox comes in. Yes, a toolbox. The kind your father might have kept in the garage metal and a little rusty, full of screws and memories. Or perhaps a wooden crate once used for apples or books. These humble containers are perfect for a charming portable herb garden, and they're easier to set up than you might think. Start by visiting your local thrift shop, Value Village flea market, or even your neighbor's garage sale. Look for a medium-sized toolbox or wooden crate with compartments. Metal or wood, either works. The more worn it looks, the more charm it adds. Give it a good cleaning. If it's metal, a bit of sanding and a coat of rust-proof spray paint in matte black, soft green, or sunny yellow will revive it. Wooden crates can be left rustic or painted for a cottagecore feel. You can even stencil a little sign on the side, Grandma's Garden, or fresh cut herbs. Next, line the inside with heavy-duty plastic or landscaping fabric to prevent water damage, especially for wooden boxes. Poke a few small holes for drainage. Then add a layer of gravel or pebbles at the bottom, followed by quality potting soil. Now the real joy begins: planting. Choose herbs that suit your cooking and growing conditions. Parsley, chives, basil, thyme, oregano, mint. You can mix them together or assign one per compartment. Keep in mind that mint likes to stretch out, so giving it its own little space helps prevent it from taking over. Place your herb-filled toolbox in a sunny spot by the kitchen door, on a patio table, or right beside your garden bench. Water gently, trim often, and enjoy the scents and flavors as they grow. The best part: this little garden moves with you. If the light changes, just pick it up and shift it to another corner. If the rain's coming, tuck it under cover. If you're hosting tea with friends, set it on the table as a centerpiece, living fragrant and lovingly handmade. And every time you run your fingers through the leaves or lean in to smell the rosemary, you'll be reminded that usefulness never fades with age. That even a rusty old toolbox, much like us, can hold something fresh, healing, and alive. Because your hands, dear friend, still grow nourishment, not just for the body, but for the soul. You've seen them at yard sales and thrift stores, wooden chairs with spindly backs, maybe a broken seat or chipped paint, leaning quietly in the corner like they've given all they could. But oh, what royalty lies within those frames. Because with a little care and creativity, that forgotten chair can become a garden throne, not for sitting, but for blooming. This idea is one of the most heartwarming in the garden because it blends old-world charm with floral abundance. And it's easy, too perfect for those who want to add beauty without strain. To begin, find a sturdy wooden or metal chair. Don't worry if the seat is missing, in fact, that's ideal. If it's still intact but weak, you can cut it out carefully or remove it with a screwdriver. Give the frame a quick cleaning, then paint or stain it to your liking. A bold pop of color like sunflower yellow or vintage turquoise can turn it into a cheerful focal point. Or stick with whitewash and let age work its quiet magic. Now to build your seat. You'll want to nest a planter right where someone once sat. A choir-lined hanging basket wide enough to rest in the chair's opening works beautifully. You can also use an old mixing bowl, a wire basket lined with moss, or even a shallow plastic pot from the recycling bin. Secure it in place with garden wire or a few screws. Fill your planter with soil and choose plants that will trail and spill over like royal robes. petunias, creeping Jenny lobelia, or sweet potato vines. Mix in upright blooms like lavender or geraniums for contrast. Add some fragrant herbs like basil or lemon thyme for a throne that not only dazzles but smells delightful. Position your chair in a garden corner under a tree or near your front door. Let it sit like a quiet sentinel, a reclaimed piece of beauty offering its presence with grace. Over time, the flowers will grow wilder, trailing down the legs, embracing the arms, softening every edge. And as you pass by, maybe with your watering can or a cup of morning coffee, you'll remember that things and people who seem broken can still bring joy. That we don't always have to do in order to be valuable. That sometimes just being beautifully quietly is enough. This chair may not hold bodies anymore, but it holds life. It cradles color, scent, and spirit, and in doing so, it becomes a throne, not for a queen, but for the soul. Sunlight has a way of finding magic in glass, the way it bends through blue, dances off green, and makes even the simplest object feel like stained glass in a chapel. And that's why this next idea is such a quiet showstopper. Because with nothing more than old bottles, you can create a sparkling garden border that glows every time the light hits just right. Start with a small collection of glass bottles. Wine bottles, soda bottles, vintage jars. Anything with a long neck and solid base will do. The beauty is in the mix. Greens, ambers, blues, even clear glass all come alive in the sun. Value Village and other thrift stores often have them for just $1 or $2, or you may already have some saved from dinners past. Give each bottle a good wash, remove any labels if you like, and set them aside to dry. Then choose the space for your new border, maybe along the edge of a flower bed, winding beside a path, or encircling a tree at the heart of your garden. Now here comes the satisfying part. Plant the bottles neck down into the soil. Yes, upside down. You only need to bury the neck a few inches deep. You can space them closely together for a solid wall effect or give them a few inches of breathing room for a lighter look. Try alternating heights or colors for more visual interest. You can even mix in some upcycled plastic bottles spray painted in metallics for contrast and durability. If your soil is tough, use a hand trowel or even a metal rod to loosen it first. No digging, no heavy lifting, just the gentle press of a hand. Once your row is complete, step back and look. It's simple, it's bright, it's entirely made from things that were once empty and overlooked. And yet now they're catching the sun like gemstones laid into the earth. Rain will beat on them. Morning light will wake them. And every person who passes will wonder how something so small can feel so joyful. You didn't buy a plastic garden edge from a store. You created something with soul from bottles once raised in celebration, now retired into rest and reflection. It's funny, isn't it, how even glass after it's been poured out can still shine. And so can you, dear friend. Whether it's the morning of your life or the evening, you still reflect light. Still hold beauty. Still have a place in this world, colorful, strong, and full of grace. There's something deeply satisfying about placing your feet on a stone path that you created. A path that doesn't just lead somewhere, but tells a story with every step. And even better, it can be made from what most people throw away. Broken plates, chipped mugs, shattered tiles, and thrifted odds and ends. That's the magic of Mosaic stepping stones. They're part art project, part memory lane, and entirely unique to you. To begin, stop by your local Value Village or thrift shop and look for inexpensive plate saucers or ceramic tiles. Don't worry about cracks or chips. In fact, the more imperfect, the more interesting your mosaic will be. Look for pieces in colors or patterns that speak to you. Florals, blue and white china, or even a quirky cartoon dish that makes you smile. You'll also need a few round or square molds. Old cake pans, pie tins, or even large Tupperware lids work perfectly. These will shape the concrete. Be sure to grab a small bag of quick-set concrete mix available at any hardware store and easy to work with using just water and a bucket. Now comes the fun part, breaking the dishes. Wrap each plate or tile in a towel and gently tap it with a hammer until you have shards the size of puzzle pieces. Be careful, no rush, no pressure. Just slow, steady taps. You're not destroying something. You're preparing it for rebirth. Mix your concrete and pour it into the molds. While the surface is still wet, press your ceramic pieces into the top, arranging them like a mosaic. Add little items from your junk drawer too: a key, a button, a broken bracelet, a marble. Anything that holds a quiet story. Let the stones cure for at least 24 hours. Then gently pop them out of the molds, rinse them off, and run your hands over the surface. Smooth, strong, beautiful. Place them along a garden path near your bench or leading to a special corner of your yard. Each step is a collage of color and memory, a place where trash became treasure, where broken things found beauty again. And isn't that what aging teaches us? That cracks don't make us less beautiful. That every break, every piece we pick up and fit back into place tells a part of our story. That something whole can still be made from what's been scattered. These stones aren't just a path through your garden. They're a path through your life, steady, colorful, and handmade with love. And every time you walk across them, dear friend, you'll know you've left your mark one step at a time. Do you remember your first teacup? Maybe it came with a wedding china set. Maybe it belonged to your mother or your grandmother, delicate porcelain with a faded gold rim and tiny roses dancing around the side. Even if chipped, those teacups hold something sacred: memory, elegance, quiet mornings. Now imagine giving them a new life, not just on the shelf, but in the garden where they can bloom once more. This project is as whimsical as it is practical: hanging teacup planters that sway gently in the breeze, turning every old cup into a cradle for flowers, herbs, or even tiny succulents. To start, gather a few teacups and saucers. The more mismatched, the better. Think of it like a tea party in the sky. You can often find them for less than $1 at Value Village or any local thrift shop. Look for sturdy ones, preferably with wide rims and interesting patterns. Even tiny cracks are fine. We're not drinking from them anymore. There are 2 ways to turn them into planters. The first is to hot glue the cup to its saucer, creating a little dish for catching water. Drill a small hole in the bottom for drainage if you can. A ceramic bit works well, or simply add a layer of pebbles before soil to avoid root rot. The second method, perfect for more creative expression, is to hang the teacups individually like ornaments. For that, you'll need a bit of wire or old jewelry chain, some sturdy twine, and perhaps a wooden plank or branch to anchor them. Wrap the wire securely around the handle of each cup and attach them to different lengths of chain or string. You can also string a few wine corks or colorful beads along the way for extra personality. Once ready, hang them from a reclaimed piece of wood, a fence beam, or the underside of your porch roof. Each teacup will dangle sweetly, catching the light as it moves, a little floating garden filled with trailing ivy, tiny pansies, or fragrant thyme. And when the wind stirs them, they won't just move, they'll speak. Not loudly, but gently. A soft reminder that beauty doesn't belong only to the new. That a crack doesn't end a story. That something as fragile as china can still hold life. Your garden becomes a tea party for the soul. One where every bloom whispers thank you for not throwing them away, for believing they still had purpose. And just like that dear friend, you've brewed something marvelous: joy. From something so small, so simple, so lovingly repurposed. There's something magical about soft light strung above a garden. It turns an ordinary evening into something sacred, a gentle gathering under the stars, a slow meal shared with a breeze, or a quiet moment spent alone with your thoughts. And to create this kind of atmosphere, you don't need fancy lighting from a catalog. You just need a few tin cans and a little bit of heart. This DIY is simple, affordable, and oh so enchanting, especially for summer nights spent on the porch or under a tree. And the best part, it's made entirely from what you almost tossed away. Start by collecting tin cans from your kitchen or thrift store. Soup cans, coffee cans, or vegetable tins all work beautifully. Peel off the labels and give them a good rinse. If you want a cleaner look, you can remove any leftover glue with warm, soapy water or a little rubbing alcohol. Once clean and dry, fill each can with water and place it in the freezer for a few hours. This may seem odd, but there's a good reason. The ice inside gives the can strength, so it won't bend when you punch holes into it. After they've frozen solid, grab a small nail and hammer and begin gently tapping out patterns into the sides of each can. Stars, hearts, swirling spirals, anything your imagination allows. Keep the holes fairly close together to let more light shine through. If your hands aren't as strong as they once were, ask a friend or family member to help with this step. It's a lovely bonding project to do together. Once your designs are complete, let the ice melt and dry the cans thoroughly. You can leave them as bare metal or spray paint them in soft jewel tones, amber, teal, lavender for a Moroccan-inspired glow. Then insert small LED tea lights or solar-powered candles inside. For a hanging version, drill 2 small holes at the top and loop a wire or twine through to create a handle. Now string them from a curtain rod, a tree branch, or across your balcony railing. As the sun sets and your garden sinks into that quiet twilight, each lantern will begin to glow. Not just with light, but with story. These cans once held meals, nourishment, family dinners, and now they hold something just as precious: ambiance, a feeling, a mood. You didn't just decorate your space, you illuminated it gently, sustainably, beautifully. And in that soft flicker of recycled light, your garden becomes something more: a sanctuary, a celebration, a soft hymn to second chances. Because even the most ordinary things like soup cans and old wire can become extraordinary when placed in loving hands. Sometimes the quietest corners of our garden, the shady wall, the back fence, the side of the shed, are just waiting for something gentle, something green, soft, and soothing. And what better answer than moss? This next idea is like a little poem made with plants, a vertical moss art piece built inside a thrifted shadow box. It doesn't shout, it doesn't bloom in bursts, but it whispers peace every time you walk by. To begin, stop by your local thrift store and search for a shadow box or deep picture frame. These are the kind meant to hold keepsakes, medals, baby shoes, old keys. You can often find them for a few dollars tucked among the frames and odds and ends. Look for one that's wooden or painted with at least an inch or 2 of depth inside. Clean it gently, and if the frame is scratched or faded, give it a fresh coat of paint, something calming like sage green ivory or even matte black for contrast. Remove the glass panel and set it aside. We won't need it here. This piece needs to breathe. Now gather your moss. You can buy preserved craft moss online or at a hobby shop, or even collect some from your own yard if you're feeling adventurous. Add bits of sponge cork twine and scraps of fabric or lace to layer in textures. Even pieces of dried bark or pine cones can add richness. Inside the frame, begin layering your materials. Use hot glue or craft adhesive to secure the moss in place. Let it spill out a little here and there, like it's trying to grow free. Press in sponge scraps to mimic tiny hills or valleys. Add a few stones, a small figurine, or a shell from your last beach walk. Let it be personal. Let it feel like a secret place from your imagination. Once finished, mount your moss art on an outdoor wall that gets indirect light, maybe under a covered porch or along a shaded garden path. If you prefer to keep it inside, it works beautifully as a calming accent in the kitchen or hallway too. This little patch of vertical green won't require watering. It won't wilt or fade. It will simply be a soft, living reminder that not all beauty has to bloom loudly. Some things and some people thrive in the quiet, in shade, in softness, in stillness. And isn't that the truth we come to cherish as we grow older? That life isn't always about growing tall. Sometimes it's about growing inward, rooting deep, holding space for reflection. Your moss box is more than decor. It's a meditation, a moment in green, a portrait of peaceful purpose. And you made it, dear friend. With simple things, with your hands, with love. Some of the best garden creations come from unusual friendships like baskets and soda bottles. One soft and natural, the other modern and manufactured. And yet, when you bring them together with care and creativity, they make something truly beautiful, a wall of blooming practical elegance. This project is especially wonderful if you're working with a small space like a balcony fence or bare porch wall. And it's a gentle reminder that beauty often begins with things we're tempted to toss. First, let's talk baskets. At your local Value Village or thrift store, you'll find an abundance of wicker baskets in all shapes and sizes. Some deep, some shallow, some with handles, some without. Don't worry about perfection. A little fraying or unevenness adds charm. Choose ones that are light enough to hang but wide enough to hold a plant or two. Next, dig into your recycling bin for a few clear plastic soda bottles. 2-liter bottles work best, but smaller ones are fine too. Clean them well and remove any labels. Then, using a pair of scissors or a craft knife, cut them down to make simple liners that can hold soil and water without leaking through your baskets. Poke a few holes in the bottom for drainage. Now, line each basket with your cut bottle liner like a nest within a nest. You can hot glue or tape them into place, or let the soil hold them steady once filled. Add potting mix and plant your favorite blooms, trailing nasturtiums, bright pansies, or even small herbs like oregano and chives. Once planted, it's time to hang. Use strong hooks, nails, or even zip ties to attach the baskets to your wall or fence. Try clustering them in groups of 3 or 5 at slightly different heights to create a cascading effect. If your hands are feeling extra creative, braid some jute rope and weave it through the basket handles for an added rustic flair. Step back and take a look. What once was a blank wall, maybe even a bit lifeless, is now a patchwork of color and texture. The baskets breathe with charm. The soda bottles disappear behind blooms, and the whole space feels more alive, more personal, more you. But more than that, this project reminds us that different materials, just like different people, can support each other. One gives form, the other gives strength. Together, they create a space where life can thrive. You've taken 2 things headed for the trash and turned them into a vertical garden of joy. Because your eye sees potential, your hands give new purpose, and your heart always finds the beauty in unlikely combinations. Close your eyes for a moment and listen. A gentle clink, a hollow echo, the softest chime dancing through the garden air. That sound. It's not from a store-bought wind chime. It's the voice of clay pots, old, earthy, and humble, turned into a melody only the breeze can play. This project, which I like to call the Terracotta Wind Song, is as soothing to make as it is to hear. And best of all, it uses pieces that are often forgotten, small clay pots from thrift stores like Value Village, or perhaps already tucked away in a shed or garage. Start by gathering a few small terracotta pots. 3-inch and 4-inch ones work best. Look for a mix of shapes if you can. You'll also need some twine or natural rope, a sturdy stick or piece of driftwood to hang everything from, and a few wooden beads, metal washers, or old buttons to act as spacers and sound enhancers. Begin by threading the rope through the drainage holes of each pot, creating vertical strands. Tie a large knot or thread a bead beneath each pot so it stays in place. You can layer the pots upside down, spaced a few inches apart, to let them chime gently against each other in the wind. To add personality, consider painting the pots with soft pastel patterns, garden motifs, or even simple dots. If painting isn't your style, you can wrap the rims with fabric strips or lace for a softer, more textured look. Want more sound? Add a few metal washers or thrifted charms in between the pots so they clink lightly as they move. Once your strands are complete, tie them securely to your wooden base. This could be a salvaged tree branch, a curtain rod you no longer use, or even the frame of an old lampshade. Hang the whole piece from a hook on your porch ceiling, a shepherd's hook in the garden, or along your fence. Now wait for the wind. Not a storm, but a whisper. And when it comes, your wind chime will begin to sing, not loudly, not insistently, but like a lullaby from the earth. Every chime, every sway, every tiny knock of clay against clay says something. That stillness is music. That simplicity has rhythm. That even pots meant to hold plants can hold sound, story, and soul. And you, dear friend, have made something timeless. From objects once silent, you created a song. Not flashy, not loud, just honest, just real, just lovely. And maybe when you hear it, you'll smile and remember you don't have to shout to be heard. You only need to move gently and let the wind do the rest. There's something hauntingly beautiful about an old window frame. Even without the glass, it still feels like a portal, a glimpse into what once was. Maybe it looked out over a garden decades ago. Maybe someone stood behind it holding coffee, watching rainfall. And now it can be yours, not for looking through, but for growing through. Today's idea is gentle, decorative, and deeply nostalgic. A reclaimed window plant shelf, part display, part garden, and entirely filled with soul. To begin, visit your favorite thrift shop or salvage yard and look for an old window frame. It doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, peeling paint, missing panes, or a weathered surface only adds charm. Choose one that feels right, square or tall, single pane or multi-pane, whatever speaks to your space. Once home, clean the wood and lightly sand it to remove dirt or flaking paint. You can leave it rustic or give it a coat of whitewash or chalk paint for that shabby chic finish. If you want to go even softer, wrap the edges in jute rope or staple lace along the frame for a cottage-like feel. Next, let's add the shelves. Cut a few small wooden boards to fit across the width of the frame 2 or 3 tiers depending on the window's height. Secure them with small corner brackets or L-braces from the hardware store. If drilling feels like too much, you can also hang tiny shelves from twine, allowing them to dangle gently in the middle of each pane. Now comes the joy, the styling. Place small potted plants on each shelf, succulents trailing ivy baby herbs. Use mason jars, painted tins, teacups, or thrifted bowls as your planters. You might even tuck in a photo in a weatherproof frame, a tiny bird figurine, or a bundle of dried lavender. Then choose where this living window will go. Mount it on a stucco wall. Hang it from a sturdy fence. Lean it against your porch for a relaxed vintage vibe. Wherever it rests, it brings a quiet kind of charm, like hanging a piece of your heart outside for the sun to warm. And as time goes by, those little plants will stretch toward the light. Some may bloom, some may trail, some may surprise you altogether. But what's constant is this: you gave an old frame a new view. You turned something once forgotten into a backdrop for growth, beauty, and peace. Because even windows that no longer open can still let light in. And maybe that's true of us too. We change, we weather, but when rooted in care and creativity, we remain full of possibility. And this window, gentle blooming reclaimed, is a reminder that your garden and your life are still full of wonder waiting to be seen. There's something deeply healing about the sound of water, a quiet trickle over stone, the soft rhythm of a backyard fountain like the heartbeat of a peaceful home. And believe it or not, you can create that serenity with nothing more than a few thrifted pots and a touch of gentle engineering. This next idea is one of those beautiful surprises, a stacked pot fountain made from ceramic planters you can often find at thrift shops, garden centers, or even tucked away in the back of your garage. Start by selecting 3 ceramic or terracotta pots in graduated sizes, small, medium, and large. They should be sturdy with drainage holes in the bottom. Don't worry if they're mismatched or a little chipped. Imperfections add charm. Next, gather a few supporting pieces. A small submersible water pump, you can find these online or at hardware stores. Some flexible tubing that fits the pump. Gravel broken tile or glass beads. Optional, a few decorative stones, seashells, or recycled garden ornaments. To build your fountain, place the largest pot at the base. Fill it partially with gravel to weigh it down and help with water flow. Feed the tubing from the pump through the drainage hole and set the pump inside. Then place a brick or overturned pot inside the base pot to support the second pot on top, slightly off-center for a whimsical cascading look. Repeat the same process with the next pot, again feeding the tubing through the drainage hole. Do the same with the smallest pot on top. Once the structure feels steady, fill each pot with a few decorative stones, broken tiles, or recycled beads to help guide the water and create a soft, trickling sound. Pour in water, plug in the pump, and watch as a gentle stream begins to flow from the top down, dancing over the tiles, catching sunlight, and making a melody of calm. Place your stacked fountain on a shaded patio in a courtyard or next to your favorite garden chair. Surround it with potted plants or flowering herbs for a secret garden effect. And then just listen. This sound wasn't bought from a luxury garden shop. It was created by your hands, from thrifted pots, bits of tile, and quiet care. It tells a story that flow doesn't have to be fast to be powerful. That peace comes from arrangement, from taking what you have and placing it just so. That even the humblest materials stacked with intention can become something beautiful and alive. And perhaps, like this fountain, you too are learning to flow gently. Not rushing, not forcing, just allowing, just being. Water finds its way, and so will you. There's something soul-stirring about birds in the garden, their tiny feathers fluttering their songs, lifting the morning air, their presence making even the stillest moments feel alive. And when you offer them water, they come not just to drink or bathe, but to say thank you. A bird bath doesn't need to be grand or made of marble. In fact, some of the loveliest ones begin with something as simple as a ceramic serving bowl from your kitchen or thrift store. To create your own birdbath bowl, beauty begin with a wide, shallow ceramic or glass bowl. You'll find dozens at Value Village or other thrift shops. Look for cheerful colors, floral patterns, or even solid white for a timeless touch. Make sure it's not too deep. Birds prefer a water depth of about 1 to 2 inches, just enough to splash and dip without fear. Now let's find a base. You can get creative here. A sturdy table leg from a discarded chair, a thick candlestick, or even a thrifted lamp base works well. Use strong adhesive like waterproof construction glue to attach the bowl securely to the base. Let it dry completely before moving it outdoors. Want more charm? Decorate the bowl's edge with mosaic tiles, small shells, marbles, or even vintage jewelry pieces. These little touches sparkle in the sun and offer birds a safe place to perch. Position your new bird bath in a quiet, shady spot where birds feel protected near shrubs or trees, but far enough from heavy foot traffic. You can set it in a flower bed, on a patio table, or even on a tree stump. If bending down is a concern, opt for a taller base, so you can easily refill and clean it without strain. Add fresh water and then wait. At first it may be just the breeze that ripples the surface, but soon a curious finch may flutter in. A robin might tiptoe along the rim. A hummingbird could pause to sip and hover. They'll come. They always do. And with them comes joy. You'll find yourself watching more, breathing slower, noticing the little things, feathers fluffing wings, shaking off droplets, tiny beaks raised to the sky. Because this isn't just a bowl of water. It's a welcome, an invitation for life to visit. And you, dear friend, made that possible, not with a credit card, but with care, not with a catalog, but with creativity. In the process, you gave something discarded a second chance and gave yourself one too. A reason to pause, to tend, to marvel. And isn't that what a garden is for? Do you remember the old cake pans you once used for birthdays, holidays, and quiet Sunday baking? The round ones, the square ones, maybe even the bunt pans shaped like flowers. They may be dented now, a little rusted, long retired from the oven, but they still have something to give. In this final project of our garden journey together, we'll use those very pans or ones you can easily find at your local thrift store to create something lasting, earthy and poetic, leaf-stamped stepping stones. This is a project that connects you directly to the garden, not through heavy lifting, but through gentle pressing, shaping, and waiting. It's a beautiful metaphor for the stage of life we're in, slow, intentional, and filled with quiet creation. Begin by choosing a few leaves from your own yard. Hostas, ferns, maple, or magnolia work beautifully. The more texture in the veins, the more beautiful the final imprint will be. Give them a rinse and set them aside. Now grab your cake pans, round or square, and coat the inside with a bit of cooking spray or a thin layer of petroleum jelly. This helps release the stone later. In a bucket, mix a small batch of quick-set concrete following the package instructions. You don't need much, just enough to fill each pan to about 1 to 2 inches deep. Before pouring, place your chosen leaf face down in the pan. Then slowly pour the concrete over it, gently pressing it flat with a trowel or gloved hand. Tap the sides of the pan to release air bubbles and then let it rest. Over the next 24 hours, something lovely happens. The leaf creates an impression, a fossil-like stamp into the stone, catching every vein, every curve, every delicate line. Once dry, turn the pan upside down and tap gently to release your new stepping stone. Peel off the leaf and you'll see the garden signature preserved in concrete. You can leave the stones natural or highlight the details with weather-resistant paint or a light stain. Arrange them through a flower bed beneath a bench or along a small garden path where you can step from one memory to the next. Each stone becomes a reminder that beauty comes not just from blooms, but from what lies beneath. That leaves like seasons fall but leave their mark behind. That even the most common objects, cake pans, fallen leaves, cement, can become keepsakes when touched by loving hands. And perhaps most beautifully of all, dear friend, these stones will outlast you. They'll remain long after the flowers fade, catching dew, anchoring space, whispering, someone cared here. Someone created here, because you did, and it mattered. And so here we are, dear friend, at the gentle close of our garden stroll. We've wandered together through teacup planters and windchimes, drawn paths with broken plates and glowing bottles. We've lifted baskets to fences, turned ladders into green towers, and made fountains sing from thrifted pots. Not once did we need anything brand new. Not once did we rush. Because true beauty, the kind that lasts, doesn't come from a store. It comes from the quiet courage to see value in what's been set aside. It comes from hands that have folded laundry, held babies, and dug into soil, hands that still create, even if a little slower now. Every idea we explored together came from what others might call trash. A chipped chair, a soda bottle, an old spoon. But when placed with love, these small forgotten things found new voices. And in turning them into something lovely, you remind the world you still have something to offer. Something only you can bring, because you, like your garden, are still blooming, still vibrant, still full of light. Don't let anyone, not even that small voice in your own heart, tell you it's too late. Too late to begin a project. Too late to try something new. Too late to create beauty from your little corner of the world. If anything, now is exactly the time. You've lived, you've loved, you've learned how to wait for spring, and that wisdom, that patience, it makes your garden grow in ways the young can't yet understand. So, which idea brought you joy today? Was it the mossy window frame or the birdbath bowl shimmering in the shade? Maybe it was something as simple as the feel of old spoons becoming plant markers. Whatever it was, I hope it reminded you of who you are, creative, capable, and still very much alive. If this visit brought you a little peace, I hope you'll join me again. There are always more stories to tell, more ideas to share, and more corners of your garden and your heart to gently tend. So until next time, happy gardening, dear friend. May your hands stay steady. May your eyes stay open to small beauty. And may your spirit, like your flowers, always find a way to rise.